Hello dear visitors, today we're going to discuss a very subtle and multifaceted topic, so we'll have to divide our talk into two parts. First we'll discuss the passage from The Lord of the Rings where Gandalf actually consciously says no to possessing the ring when Frodo wants to give it to him. I'm saying consciously because the first time when Gandalf was under direct influence of the ring, we actually discussed this topic some time ago in one of my previous videos. So I recommend to watch it, to pause right now and watch the previous video on the topic. And in the second part of today's video, I'll give you a new perspective on how someone in the Lord of the Rings universe can actually use the ring, and what's the difference between Gandalf using the ring, for example, and Bilbo or Frodo using the ring, or even Aragorn, or let's say, for example, Boromir. Now let's read the passage. "But I have so little of any of these things. You are wise and powerful. Will you not take the ring?" "No!" cried Gandalf, springing to his feet. "With that power I should have power too great and terrible, and over me the ring would gain a power still greater and more deadly." His eyes flashed and his face was lit as by fire within. "Do not tempt me, for I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord himself. Yet the way of the ring to my heart is by pity for weakness and the desire of strength to do good. Do not tempt me. I dare not take it, not even to keep it safe, unused. The wish to wield it would be too great for my strength. I shall have such need of it. Great perils lie before me." Okay, I'll stop right here and let's discuss this piece. Let's delve deeper into the powers of the ring and who and how can activate them, and why there is such a difference between, let's say, Frodo using the ring and Sauron using the ring. As you have probably noticed while reading the book or maybe watching the movies, most characters who in some way have to deal with the ring, or with people who may deal with the ring, they believe either that the ring is a powerful weapon, but usually they don't know how to use it. They just heard something about it being such a powerful weapon, or they think that there is no way to use it. And I think we should really ask ourselves a very interesting question. And the question is, why most people in the universe, in the Lord of the Rings universe, believe that the ring is such a powerful weapon, when most of the time when we see it being used, it's just for invisibility, which is a great power in itself, but still, invisibility is not a direct combat power, you know? Of course you can do much harm when you're invisible, but still. The answer to this question is both simple and complex. You see, most people in Middle-earth who know something about the One Ring, they probably heard stories of Sauron using it himself. And we might think that, well, Sauron made it and probably he's the only one who can use it, right? Well, I believe that it's wrong. There are beings in the Lord of the Rings universe that can unlock the full power of the ring, or at least can do much more with it than just becoming invisible. And by the way, you probably do remember that there are lesser rings. And lesser rings, even though they're not as powerful, sometimes they clearly seem to be doing much more. So why are they lesser? Why? How is it possible that the One Ring is just some kind of invisibility feat trinket, and other lesser rings are so powerful? So what's the catch here? So the catch here is that the lesser rings were specifically created to be used by all the races of Middle-earth. So anyone can unlock the power of the lesser ring, with some training of course, but still. And the One Ring, it was created to respond to a specific kind of being. Well, you may say that it's probably Sauron, just him and that's all, but no, even Sauron probably didn't have enough power to make this ring answer only to him, and that's all. You see, I believe that even this kind of an invisibility feat that the ring possesses in the hands of, let's say, a normal creature, like a hobbit or a human, I think that this was a kind of an incidental effect, an effect that Sauron couldn't really turn off when he created the ring. And also the effect of prolonging one's life was also a side effect. It wasn't intended, in my opinion. It's just something that works on every creature that tries to use the ring, that's all. But there is more. Now we're getting to the most interesting part. You see, besides being unable to turn off some of the effects for so-called normal creatures, Sauron couldn't really stop creatures who have the same nature, same foundation as himself from unlocking the full power of the ring, or maybe unlocking like 99% of its power. So who is Sauron? Who is he really? Sauron is one of the so-called Maiar. Maiar are Fey spirits. Spirits who are conscious and who had been born way, way before even elves were given birth to this world. And those spirits, at first, of course, they didn't have any physical form, and their main purpose was, at first, something along the lines of helping gods to shape the world the way they want it to be and the way the greater deity wanted it to be or wants it to be. But then they started getting physical form, and through this physical form they started becoming more and more similar to normal creatures of this world, but still they had some special qualities to them. For example, they could channel some of the, let's call it, magical power of the gods of the universe itself through their physical form into the world. Even though their genetic constitution, genetic composition was the same, not the same, it was the way they chose their physical form to be. So, for example, if some Maiar chose to be close in his appearance and physical form to an elf, he would be an elf. And if he or she chose to be a human, he would feel himself just like a human. And more than that, it would be possible for this Maiar to have kids with the same type of being that he himself not only looks like, but that he is, so to say. But there is a twist. Maiar still stays a Maiar in many ways. For example, Maiar cannot really die of old age. They do not suffer from most illnesses the way usual normal beings do. And as I have already told you, they can channel magical power of gods through them and into the world. Some Maiar chose physical forms that were exclusive to them. For example, Balrogs are all exclusively Maiar. There are no natural Balrogs at all. This physical form was created to be used for war, for terror. It was created actually for the use by the real Dark Lord, the one who commanded not only all Balrogs but Sauron himself. But we'll talk about it in some other episode or episodes. For now, it will suffice to say that Sauron didn't have even one Balrog in his army. The Balrog in Moria wasn't Sauron's minion per se. Okay, now we know that Sauron was in fact a Maiar, one of the spirits of the Lord of the Rings universe. As to his physical form, we'll talk about this later in some other episode. But for now, let's get back to the ring's powers and who can use them to the full and why and how. So, first of all, in order to understand why there is such a difference in the ring's usage, we can recall a superbly done scene from the first movie of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's the scene from the prologue sequence where we can see Sauron attacking the union of elves and men, or going to war with this union of elves and men. And when he attacks with the power of the ring, we can clearly see Sauron. He is not in this like spirit world where Frodo is when he's using the ring. He's clearly seen by everyone. Well, the simplest proof that Sauron was visible is the fact that Isildur could actually cut off his finger, and he saw his finger, and he saw Sauron, and he wasn't fighting an invisible enemy, which is clear both in the book and in the movie. And this is in fact a very, very important clue for our understanding of the ring and its powers and the way Sauron created it. Because actually for Sauron it would have given him a serious advantage in this combat. If he could stay invisible while using the powers of the ring and his own martial prowess, so to say, he would have probably won the battle. And I'm sure that Sauron, if he only could stay invisible with the power of the One Ring, he would definitely stay invisible all the time. But he couldn't do it. And the reason is simple. It wasn't intended. And more than that, it wasn't possible at all for Sauron to create such a ring. No ring, no magical power could make a Maiar fully invisible in his physical form. That's one of the disadvantages of such a powerful form in this universe. While on the other hand, this is a great advantage for any lesser creature, so to say, because any lesser creature, any normal creature can stay invisible using the ring. But seriously, if the main power of the ring that Sauron could use himself was weaker than this invisibility side effect, would Sauron really care that much about this ring? Would he really try to get it back so desperately? And would he really make it? Would he really create it in the first place? Well, of course not. Of course there were powers much, much greater than invisibility. And those powers could be used not only by Sauron, but by any Maiar, anyone who has the same foundation as Sauron. And this is precisely what Gandalf is. Gandalf is a Maiar also, as well as Saruman, as well as Radagast and other two wizards. And that means that with the right amount of knowledge, with the right amount of tries and fails, any Maiar can possibly use the ring to its full. And also that means that Gandalf won't be invisible if he puts the ring on his finger, which is also a very interesting thing to note. And we can easily imagine that Gandalf could figure out the way Sauron used his ring. And more than that, if we take into account the fact that Gandalf is quite inventive and much more liberal in his thoughts, in his ways than Sauron, that may even mean that Gandalf could become even more powerful with the ring than Sauron ever was or ever could be. As for the powers that the ring could possibly bestow to its users, let's have a brainstorming session here. Let's think about the ways this kind of thing could be used and how possibly it could operate. Well, my guess is that, first of all, this ring is like an extremely potent computer. You could have noticed multiple times when the ring was mentioned having intelligence of its own. For instance, when it's mentioned that the ring was trying to find its master or trying to deceive anyone, any ring bearer that may have come upon it. The next thing that we should understand about the ring and its characteristics is that it was made to last. It was made from metal or metal-like material, special metal-like material, which could withstand extreme temperatures, extreme forces applied to it, and possibly it could and it should withstand direct magical attacks made against it. Otherwise, it would have been possible to just destroy the ring with magical fire or any other magical force applied against it. And in such a magical universe as the Lord of the Rings universe, it's extremely important to have at least some kind of magical defense for a powerful weapon like this. Now from defense, let's roll over to offense. I believe that the ring could terraform the world around it, at least to some point. For example, it could grow a real mountain out of just a flat surface, and it could make a flat surface where a mountain or a hill was. It would probably take some time for somebody like Sauron to carry out a project like this, but still it could possibly bring his level of power closer to that of his own master, the Dark Lord, the real Dark Lord, and other gods of Arda, which is the name of the whole universe in Tolkien's books. I also believe that the One Ring had powers similar to lesser rings. For example, it could create fire, it could create some kind of light, even more powerful than that which could have been created by the power of the lesser rings, for example, like the one that Gandalf had. The One Ring probably had great capabilities for direct and indirect mind control, both individual and used to control masses. And on top of all that, being a kind of supercomputer, it could help Sauron to analyze, plan, and even create something, because evil creatures in Arda had a big problem with imagination, with creating something new. They were more prone to try to distort, disfigure, and corrupt something that had already been created before. So the One Ring was really the key for Sauron to be constantly upgrading his own approach, to be so successful in his conquering of Middle-earth, and without it, he really did lose a major amount of his power or powers. So returning to Gandalf, if Gandalf really took the ring for himself, he would be able to unlock its powers to the full. He would be able to use everything that I've just mentioned, and more than that, he would probably add some variations of those powers that would be created by him personally, using his own knowledge, using the knowledge he has from other gods of Arda, using the knowledge that he accumulated independently from the knowledge that Sauron could have accumulated. And there is one more thing that I need to mention about the power of the One Ring and its connection to Gandalf's own assets, so to say, is the fact that the One Ring is the ring that can control the powers of other rings and possibly even make those powers greater. And Gandalf wielded the Ring of Fire, one of the lesser rings, so adding the One Ring to his collection would also open up the powers of the Ring of Fire, and those powers would help the powers of the One Ring to be even more effective. And all that would be just enough to defeat Sauron and his servants, the Ringwraith, who also were in possession of some of the lesser rings. And after defeating them, Gandalf would take all the rings for himself, and his power would be greater than anything in Middle-earth, at least anything that stayed in Middle-earth at that very moment when the War of the Ring broke out.